Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the ETTO Comic Cast.
We made it.
You did it.
We made it.
Round
We're back
two.
for a second month.
Yes.
I am Ben. We've got Will, and we've got Josh.
What's
The
up?
whole crew.
Crew.
us.
Will?
It's on my
What's
freaking crew is on my freaking shirt.
Oh, yeah.
Wrong people, though.
Really did make it, yeah. We can be mythical.
That's true.
Will and I are pretty mythical. Is Ben mythical?
Pretty mythical. I'd like to be mythical.
You can be mythical. We're all
You're
mythical now.
We're all
We're
mythical.
mythical. We're the mythical.
We are
We're the real one.
the true crew.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Will, you said you'd have a different job for me each month, so what do I do?
This week you are a professor at Hargraves, which I believe is the name of the guy that looks after the Umbrella Academy. So I don't think that's a real school. But you make lots of notes and make your students read all of those notes. And it's really informative, but those students are like, "Hey, sir, can we just let's take a chill pill on the notes for this week." But you're a great professor at the end of the day at this Hargraves school.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's definitely nothing that led into that story.
No,
No, not at all.
Yeah, look, I like making in-depth notes,
Yeah.
and sometimes I go a bit overboard. That may have happened yesterday, but
May
We'll
have.
never know.
We could
We'll never
we
know.
could
I
convert
wasn't.
Ben's notes into the novelization of House of M.
Well, basically,
if we like.
basically, you could with a bit more Ben humor in there,
Yeah.
definitely. But I've pared them down for these guys. They're a bit better now, so we'll see how we go.
Excellent.
It'll be good fun.
Yes.
But yeah, in case you don't know what we're talking about this month, we're talking about House of M.
Yes.
Which also ties into WandaVision.
Oh yeah.
It's another one of the ones that the show seems to be like mainly based off. That came out in 2005. It's 8 issues long. It was like one of their big events. They had like 12 different tie-ins that we're going to go into later very briefly. Not a lot of them are very good. We're just doing the main issues here. But, you know, some of you, I know one viewer in particular read all of them and might have regretted it a little bit.
Wow.
I've read all of them at one point, and I can tell you, it's quite the read. I'm glad I did just the 8 this time to like... I don't know. I realized it actually works really well as just like an 8-issue thing, whereas last time I was like, man, this is dragging. I don't know how I can get through all
I
of
do
it.
remember you mentioning that the Spider-Man one is kind of worth reading, and from all of this, he definitely seems like one of the most interesting characters in this story. So I'd be
Yeah,
keen to jump
totally.
in that and read his little side plot.
Yeah, totally. I might jump into them a bit later once we've gone through like the rest of it,
Cool.
just to like tell you which ones I think are worth reading.
Yeah, man.
There's only like 3 or 4 I think that you could give a go.
Yeah.
You also don't have to, because the main thing is really damn good.
Yeah, it's great.
It is.
I will admit, I got to issue 6 this morning. I may have read them all this morning, so they're very
Yeah,
fresh.
no.
And I was like, because most of them are usually 6 issues. So I got to issue 6, and I was like, how are they wrapping this thing up? Like, this is a lot going on for issue 6. But no, it's. I think it's a very solidly written one, and generally it feels a little bit messy. And it was funny. I was talking to you, Josh, about this. I was like, it feels, and I read this when I first got Marvel Unlimited, so I hadn't come back to it for a long time. And I was like, I don't think they could ever do this in a movie. But having read it, I'm like, actually, you know what? This would actually be a pretty solid movie. Like, if Marvel is going down a weird path, I think this is a story they could possibly pull off with the band of characters they currently have, which would be fun.
Yeah, but is it would it be then dipping too much back into a WandaVision vibe again if they
Possibly.
went for this?
Well, this is almost a Groundhog Day, if any, or not even Groundhog Day, like Days of Future Past-ish. There's a lot of that,
okay.
a lot of that in there too.
and most of the X-Men movies were the same movie, so
It's true. They
I
did
guess-
Dark
I guess
Phoenix
Marvel
3
can-
times.
Yeah, I guess Marvel can just dip back into WandaVision and just do that story again.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, totally. I mean, and the MCU, like, part of when I initially read this, I was like, this would not work at all as a film. But, like, thinking about it now, part of the thing about the MCU is it has so many characters now that I almost feel like once they introduce a few more, they can do it and kind of do all the, like, massive character beats that they have, and it would pay off as, like, a film.
Yeah.
It might need to be a long film. I don't know.
It'll be a 4-hour film. It'll be shot in 4:3.
Damn it.
No.
God damn it. I mean, and like, just as the idea of this is a film, which I'm sure we'll come back to, but like, imagine if this is how like they brought back like Luke Cage and Iron Fist and stuff. Like, if the House of M was the first time we saw them in the Marvel universe, and then you see them normally, that'd be pretty fun.
That'd be very cool. Do you almost wonder? Now I'm wondering if I can't say Wanda at the moment without thinking Wanda. It's really bad. I'm almost thinking that maybe that's what Multiverse of Madness is. In a way, it's actually pulling bits from this as well.
That's a good point.
I keep saying maybe this is what that film is. I really have no clue, but it's fun to speculate.
No, that's a very good point. That maybe like the House of M isn't all WandaVision. Like this trilogy of multiverse is pulling upon House of M throughout it, because it is a very like you go to an alternate reality, which is very multiversal. So yeah, that's a great point. I hadn't considered that.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right, so we're going to get into some little facts before we jump into the issues.
Yeah,
facts.
And I asked last time if any of our viewers wanted to name, and we got one name, so thank you, Dolphin Pants.
Always.
So this is now called Comic Curiosities.
Love it.
Which is actually pretty good.
Cool.
That's good.
Love it.
That is
Like
good.
it.
So House of M, written by Brian Michael Bendis, very, very common Marvel writer, has done a lot of things. He's won a bunch of Eisner Awards back in like the early 2000s. But probably the most notable thing he's done is back in, I think it was like the early 2010s, Marvel started up the Ultimate Universe, and he was kind of the main creator of that, alongside a couple other people, which gave us a lot of good things, some less good things, but it gave us Miles Morales, which is the main thing that we're grateful for.
Absolutely.
I think.
And Samuel L. Jackson, Nick Fury.
That too.
Oh,
which
is that where that comes from?
Yeah.
Sick.
I will say, reading one of the tie-ins, I think it's the Wolverine one. It's not good. But Nick Fury is in that, and he's just a white man. And at this point, like, I'm so used to Nick Fury being like based on Samuel L. Jackson at this point that I was like,
who's this?
So thrown off by that when I first read it. I was like, that's not Nick Fury.
That's great.
You're telling me he was once just a generic white man? That's impossible. But yeah, a bunch of other famous stuff Bendis has done: Avengers vs. X-Men, Secret Wars, Secret Invasion, Age of Ultron, Civil War 2, all the big Marvel things, basically.
I feel like he might have been part of Extremis as well.
Very possibly.
Sounds like a thing he could have done.
I was gonna list like a lot of stuff, and then I was like, it's really not worth it. He's literally done so many different Marvel things.
He's
I'm
definitely one of
also
those names.
incorrect. It's Warren Ellis. My apologies.
I will say the one thing about Bendis that you'll notice quite a lot is that he loves a good big exposition dump. So there tends to be bits that if you want to, you can just skim over, which is fun.
Yeah, it made reading 8 issues this morning a little bit easier. So
a little bit easier.
Keep doing it, Bendis.
Especially if you've read them before.
Yeah, I will say I feel like I flew through these. I'm not a fast reader, and I do take a while to read comics, whether it's over periods of time or just in one sitting anyway. But yeah, I found this like quite an easy read overall. Although I don't know about you guys, I don't know if it's just me, like, in my brain just not getting stuff, but there's always parts in these big comic series where I'm like, I have no idea what's going on, and I heavily rely on the opening blurb of the following comic to explain it.
Like, what actually happened there?
This was issue 2 for me, I think.
Yeah.
Issue 2 was like, the hell is happening? And then the next issue's like, this is what's happening.
Yeah,
like,
good.
Oh, okay. and one of my notes, like at the end of issue 1 of this, Peter Parker wakes up with some woman, and there's like a picture of her or whatever, but it's not anyone that I recognized.
Yeah.
Because it didn't look like Gwen Stacy, who apparently it actually was.
Really? I read it straight as that. It was a blonde person. I'm like, well, it's obviously Gwen Stacy.
I like went back and looked at it and went, no, I cannot.
Yeah, weird.
I don't even remember them being blonde.
You are dumb.
I am dumb.
I think that's what we've gotten to the end of this now.
This is fair. But yeah, it wasn't until the blurb of the first one that was like, woke up next to Gwen Stacy. I'm like, oh, okay, sure, yeah, all right.
Interesting. Cool.
I guess I'm following now.
Yeah.
I will say that this series does rely a lot on you having some
Totally.
pre-assumed knowledge of Marvel stuff, which can be good, but can also be very bad. And especially when reading the whole event with all the tie-ins, I was Googling so many characters. I still had to do it this time reading just the 8 issues, because there were some people I was like, who is that?
you?
Like,
Yeah, that was... Sorry, yeah.
I'm like not big on X-Men lore as well, so I was like, I don't know who half these people are.
Yes, yeah, totally. There's so many characters that they're just like talking to them, and I think they just assume you know who they are based on what they look like.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. I guess I don't read enough of any of these characters' stuff to know who you are.
Yeah.
Are you Iron Man?
Yeah.
No, you're not.
I don't know who you are.
I don't know who you are then.
And just to go on to the artists for a second, Oliver Koipel is the main artist. There's a guy called Tim Townsend as well, but I couldn't find anything on him. But fun fact about Koipel, this was his first series for Marvel under like an exclusive contract, so since then he's been doing all his work for Marvel.
Yeah, right.
Cool.
And he's also done a bunch of stuff on Thor, so he won an Eisner Award, or the series won an Eisner Award in 2009, the first Thor series he did. And then he did the Unworthy Thor series, which is the one where Thor kind of gives up the mantle to Jane Foster and finds himself checking out who he is and that kind of thing. And then I just wanted to shout out this because he does the covers for the 2020 Thor run, and I just want everyone to read the 2020
I'm going to add it
Thor
to my
run,
list
'cause it's
right
very
now.
good. Yeah. Also, it's the reason Fortnite did their whole crossover.
Yeah, good.
But don't mind that.
Yes.
We're not going to talk about Fortnite for too long here. And then color artist, Frank Darmata. He's done extensive coloring work for Marvel, but it seems like House of M is like the main thing he's done. And then the cover artist is Esab Ribic. I think that I might have butchered that pronunciation. Yeah. I will say, though, the covers of this House of M go hard. Like, they're very, very good.
They're so sick. Yeah, I was talking to my girlfriend about them because I'm like, what is this art style? Because she's an artist. And she's like, oh, it kind of looks like oil paintings, like a Ruminesce style. And I was like, cool. What is Ruminesce? She's like, oh, it's kind of like the like naked, muscly, like oil paintings of people. I'm like, that makes sense for comic books because they're basically just naked.
Yeah,
and muscly.
That's true.
So it makes a lot of sense. But
I think it's also cool because they're very different to like the actual art style of the comics. So you like open up the comic and you're like, oh, that's sick. You see like a different perspective of it all.
And the covers, they seem to like they're so consistent. Like it's the same art style and it's all that sort of thing. It's very cool.
Yeah.
What was that face, Will?
I'm just fixing my face. The audio listeners won't know, but I'm fixing my face.
No.
It's all right.
Okay, sure.
That's all right. Then Rubik also did the covers for Secret Wars, which was another thing Bendis worked on. These guys seem to work together a lot, basically.
Yeah, cool.
That's all you need to know. And then we got some actual, like, some cockatoos in the background. I apologize.
We got those. Amazing.
They've made it in, snuck their way into the comics.
Yeah. Anyway, there's some actual, like, I've got a few cute little facts here. This series actually just started as a simple little fill-in to allow a breakup in, like, the Astonishing X-Men run, so the artist could, like, catch up on his work.
Amazing.
They were like, what if we do House of M? And now it's, like, one of the most iconic Marvel events, and it's, like, Wanda's, like, the extent of Wanda's powers and all that.
Totally.
But it just started as a humble little, guys, I'm a bit behind on my work. we need to come up with something else.
I love that.
Which I love.
It was like trying to catch up, so they just destroyed all the X-Men.
Yeah.
No
and
more.
Like rewrote their entire canon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to catch up.
Yeah. And then
Too funny.
basically the context for this series is provided in a couple of different series before it. There's one called Avengers Disassembled, and there's the Uncanny X-Men series. But the main thing you need to know is in Avengers Disassembled, Scarlet Witch had like a massive nervous breakdown, almost like in the MCU, and killed Hawkeye, Ant-Man, and Vision.
Yes.
And then the last little fact I have is there was a What If comic done on this series, which I found quite interesting. And it worked on the premise of what if Wanda ended the series by saying no more powers instead of just no more mutants.
Wow.
So basically they went into like other heroes losing their powers as well. I think they had Captain Marvel, known as Miss Marvel back then, Hulk, and a few others. And I think I was like, what if they did that in Marvel and they just like nuked everyone's powers for, in MCU, if they just nuked everyone's powers for like a few movies and were just like, you're all just normal humans.
Yeah.
We're just making regular films.
Well, it'd all just be the Winter Soldier movie.
Yeah, basically.
It's just people shooting guns.
It's just action films at this point.
Yeah.
Alrighty, let's get into the actual issues.
Do it.
So, issue 1. These ones don't have titles, so we can't rate the titles like
Damn
last
it.
time, which is a bit disappointing.
Yeah.
But I will say, it makes my job easier, a bit easier in the edit. So thank you for that. So I would just want to say that like the first few pages of this are really freaking cool.
What a way to
it's
start. Just
It's a
birth.
cold open as well. Yeah. There's birth. There's like amazing use of like negative space. Just actually throughout this whole series, them using like the negative space of the panels and stuff, and black and white, and like incorporating people's shadows and like their vision of reality into that and stuff.
There's some weird stuff in this issue as well that I found. Like, there's a lot of panels that look like they're cutting off a bunch of stuff. Like, it's really like head to like chest here or something, and it's just like, or like half heads.
Yeah.
But those people are talking, and it's like, it didn't seem artistic, it just looked weird and confusing, almost like something was being censored from the feed.
Ooh!
But it wasn't.
It's not. It's not that.
I don't understand how it happened, but that was my first thought, was like, are they like censoring some stuff here?
Yeah.
Because there's weird cut-off panels. The way they choose to cut off is
Yeah, right.
very unusual.
I guess I'd say it feels like quite claustrophobic.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to say is like, especially, I feel like them doing that at the start, because they're in Genosha, which I think in like the previous series has been completely and utterly wrecked by like a big battle. And I think that kind of disjointed, like cutting off people's faces and stuff, maybe, for me at least, kind of really sold like the desolation of Genosha and that kind of thing, and how like messed up everything is, which also ties into like these first few pages, which is Wanda giving birth and then us realizing she's not giving birth.
Yeah.
And it's just her and Charles just sitting there being like, Charles being like, you can't do this. You can't pretend to have kids again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very dark. Like, it's so annoying that we're going to have to reintroduce a Charles and everything back into the Marvel Universe, because I really want this relationship between like Magneto, Charles, and Wanda. But I almost feel like Wanda's beyond them by the end of the WandaVision and stuff. It's like she doesn't need that relationship. And reading this, it's like, it's such an interesting dynamic. Because also I think via the movies, and because as we're not X-Men people, I feel like we put her into, like, she's just like an Avenger thing. And it's interesting how this series is very much like she is a mutant. Don't forget that. Which I think was interesting to read.
Yeah, it's very much like a X-Men centered series, which is obviously a bit weird to read for people very familiar with the MCU like we are, and that's like a lot of our touchstone for Marvel. But I think I feel similarly to you, Will, where it's like the sibling dynamic between Pietro and Wanda is like really amazing and heart-wrenching and stuff, and also with their dad as well, but particularly the two of them. And it's like a little bit disappointing that it seems like we're gonna skip over this maybe twice now. Like,
I mean, they've definitely introduced a version of Quicksilver that I think aligns with this one. Like, I know, because I know a lot of people, and it's somewhat spoiled, but if you care about Marvel, you probably already watched WandaVision. But, like, a lot of people were like, oh, he's so mean, he's probably Mephisto. I'm like, no, Quicksilver's a dick. He is actually a dick. Like, he's a bad person in the comics as well. There's a reason he's a villain sometimes. So, like, reading the way that he's written in this as well, it's like, yeah, okay. It makes sense. The dynamic is pretty accurate.
I'd be very curious to see like a Fassbender, Evan Peters, Elizabeth Olsen dynamic.
That would
and
be
how
wonderful.
That would all work.
That would be pretty
Or like
sick.
a cross multiverse relationship.
Don't worry about the age difference. It's like, he's just from a different universe, but this makes sense. It's fine.
Exactly. So maybe one day.
Maybe
but
one
day. I think you're right. I think the fact that she has the kids now and it seems like they're going to stay probably means we won't get that, which is a bit sad. I just do hope we get more of Pietro, personally.
Yes.
Good character, and he's been kind of shoved to the side twice, it seems. So yeah, like a lot of this is kind of setting up before the big event of House of M. So we have them talking Genosha, then we have back in New York, we have the X-Men arriving at Avengers Tower, where the Avengers are all already, and they're basically talking about Wanda's just killed a bunch of Avengers. What should we do? This is a problem. She is insanely powerful. And basically, the X-Men are like, yeah, we should kill her. Like, Wolverine's like, yeah, it makes sense. And Emma Frost is like, she's a problem. But Captain America and the Avengers, of course, are like, nah, we're not doing that. Which is like, it's an interesting battle because, like, obviously Avengers and X-Men do tend to butt heads a bit in the comics.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, she is under both their jurisdictions. Like, it's an interesting dilemma because she does stuff for both the Avengers and the X-Men. She is a mutant. And they kind of talk about, like, our thing is dealing with mutant threats. That's what the X-Men do. But then they're like, but does that include us?
Yeah.
Like, what? It's a very interesting debate over what actually falls within their jurisdiction and that kind of thing.
Yeah. It's a pretty dark concept as well. Just like
it's really dark. Yeah. And then they all head to Genosha to have a chat with Wanda. They're like, well, we'll talk to her because she'll know what to do. I don't really see the logic behind that because she's the one that caused the problem. But whatever. I think the thing I want to point out about the bit when they all go to confront her, she's not there. But I think focusing on Spidey for this bit is like it's very smart because obviously he's got the spider sense and stuff. And they do this cool thing where, like, they basically turn everyone else around him into shadows while his Spidey sense is activated. And he's like, guys, what's going on? Can none of you feel this?
Yep.
And I think, obviously, it leads into what we talked about a bit earlier, where everything flashes to white. That's like the event.
Yep.
And then we cut to Peter waking up in his apartment, and he's married to Gwen Stacy, and he has a kid. And in the comic books, the death of Gwen Stacy is a big thing. So it's like extra trippy for people who are fans of comic books, especially at the time. So it's like, I think it's a weird choice to focus on Spidey when it feels like very X-Men centered, but I kind of like that they did it.
It is good. It's just like, as soon as it cut to him in the bed with Gwen, I'm like, Jesus Christ, he's like all they've got, isn't it? Like, they just can't help but be like, Spider-Man's our thing. Yeah. Like, but it is great, and it is that thing, and the next issue especially, of just how strong an identity a lot of the Marvel characters actually have. And it's like, you do so little for us to go, oh yeah, I see what you're doing here. And just like going, I mean, for some people, maybe it's not, and maybe it is vague. Maybe I would just, but I also jumped to conclusions. So maybe it was vague, but I just jumped to an answer and it was just so happened to be the correct one. But yeah, like the next issue does very little to be like, it is this character. And why don't you go into it? I don't want to.
Oh yeah, no, totally. Sorry, I just messed up something. It's all good. Nothing's gone wrong. I promise. But yeah, no, it's a really good establishing issue. We have a few viewer comments, like for issue specific.
Yep.
So all the issue specific viewer comments are from Dolphin Pants.
Of course they are.
Lovely Dolphin Pants. So this is called the Dolphin Zone for this episode.
Nice.
SeaWorld.
Yeah, SeaWorld. Okay, SeaWorld works as well. And he basically says, I love me a good humanized Magneto, which we get at the start, which I agree with. It's cool to kind of have him a bit more down to earth rather than I'm going to mutant supremacy.
Literally flying. Literally not basically on the earth.
Yeah. That shot of the X-Men walking in, that is gorgeous. But then again, so is that shot of Professor X with the Avengers. Yeah. Yeah, I think we've established very good art.
Yeah.
Very well framed.
It makes me want to buy more.
Well, Josh
action
doesn't
figures.
think so. It does make. Yeah, I mean, it makes me want to buy some action figures.
Yeah.
But I don't want to completely turn into.
Don't do it.
No. And then he says, "Man, I wish we got more Quicksilver in the MCU." We've gone into that, but I like because I think he wrote this before a bunch of WandaVision episodes.
Yeah.
Like, future me, if Quicksilver is in WandaVision, celebrate. So
there you go. You got it, buddy.
Yeah.
Got it. Better be celebrating.
Yeah. And if we get a scene similar to the one where the Avengers and X-Men are discussing the fate of Wanda and Doctor Strange with at least some Avengers, that would honestly be amazing. That would be cool. I feel like that would be an in-between thing. I don't feel like it would happen either in WandaVision or in Doctor Strange. But then again, I don't know.
I'm just praying this. I don't want that to have to. Like, I want this show to finish. But it is like it would be an incredible imagery of it. But also, like, who's left? Like,
that's true.
The room would be like 3 people.
Yeah. And then we got a couple more. Dolphin Pants is like, Iron Man carrying Cyclops by the arms is hilarious, and I agree.
Yeah.
Very funny. That's when they're like flying into Genosha. Mm-hmm. And he also says, suspenseful ending, glad I don't have to wait a month to read the next one. Me too.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the benefit of reading them like ages after they come out.
Yeah.
Because I must say, I'm like trying to keep up with a bunch of the 2020 comics as well.
No.
And like 2021 stuff. And having to wait for like the next issue when some of them are really good is... I feel the pain of people who were in 2005 who were like... What next? Spider-Man is married to Gwen Stacy? What?
Or Spider-Man is sleeping with some blonde woman?
Imagine my confusion. Yeah. Like, the hell was that? I'm not reading this anymore.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, we'll jump into issue 2, which was what Will was talking about. Basically, it's like showing a bunch of the classic heroes in this alternate reality and their new lives.
Yeah.
And as Will said, it does like a really good job of like, we know enough about these characters, so seeing them have this alternate life, which is supposedly, we learn later in the comics, what they would have wanted, is like we know enough about them to be like, oh yeah, that makes sense for this character.
Yeah.
There's a few I'm going to point out, but if you guys have any other ones, feel free to let me know. We have Old Man Steve Rogers, which is very cool.
Yeah.
Because obviously we know that from the MCU as well now. And I like that one of the kids on the street calls him the old dude. He's like, leave the old dude alone.
Yeah.
Poor old dude's checking his mail.
So good.
And at the same time as he's doing that, a bunch of the mutants are using powers freely in the street, which is like not a normal thing in the comic books. People hate mutants. So it's like, again, if you're reading this at the time, it's very much like oh my god, what's going on?
It's like, how did they ever think this was just a filler issue? They're doing so much.
I know. Well, it must have been pretty quick that they were like, okay, this is bigger than we thought.
Yeah.
I would imagine it was like, oh, I need more time. And they're like, what if we screw everything up?
May I ask a question?
Yes.
No.
I definitely missed something again. Because I did not realize the old man was
Really?
Captain America.
Joshua!
I had no idea. I don't know how I missed that.
Well then, yeah, the Gwen Stacy thing is on you. That's nothing to do with the comic.
Like, what?
Yeah, it's on like, I think on a letter?
Yeah, I think it says Steve Rogers on it. But also,
it says Captain Steve Rogers.
Again, it's just like, assumed. But, look, at least we now know where you're positioned in this.
No, that's fine. That's
so this
fine.
is issue 2, right?
Yeah.
This is issue 2, yeah.
Alright.
It's right at the start.
I'm having a look.
Okay, good.
Poor Josh. That's so funny. I love it. I wasn't looking at your face. I can't wait to watch this back when we're just like, yeah, dude, Captain Steve Rogers. Like,
yeah, me too.
That's so funny.
Man.
But yeah, no, please continue while Josh breaks down.
I will. Oh, I've just...
Oh, there it is.
Firefox is not happy. Oh, there we go. He's found it. Well done, Josh.
I didn't read the address on the letter.
I didn't either. I didn't know that was on a letter. I just assumed it was Steve Rogers because it was an old guy with white hair.
What? How do you just assume that? How do you jump to those conclusions?
I just did. And then, I mean, they basically confirm it later when they're like, don't talk to him, leave him, he deserves this good life. I was like, well, that's obviously Captain America.
Yeah, because they say that part, but I didn't connect that old man with this old man.
So you understood it later on, but not at this point.
Right, okay.
Well, yeah,
I can understand that.
But you didn't know that was him?
I didn't connect this old man with the old man that they were talking about later.
Right.
I think I totally forgot about this old man because I'm like,
it's no one.
Irrelevant.
Yeah. It's like, it's a very random way to start a comic.
That's so funny.
Okay, cool.
We're all caught up now?
Yeah, we're all caught up. We're good.
We'll find out. Maybe we're not.
It's probably a lot more I missed.
Yeah, probably. So we jump through a bunch of the other ones.
Yep.
We get Kitty Pryde.
Yeah.
That's her name. She's a teacher, and there's like a bunch of mutant kids in front of her, and they're all using their powers, and it's very cool. And she she basically asks them who the first mutant is, and then it's a fun little line where she's like, "No, not officially. It's not Jesus or Moses. Basically, it is Namor, who's like Ocean Man, Aquaman." Yeah. I think I always thought Namor was like a rip-off of Aquaman, but apparently the thing is that he's like he was a thing earlier.
Yeah, right.
I'm not sure. But I don't know. Everyone knows who Aquaman is, so just think about Jason Momoa.
Just think of him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we get Doctor Strange, who's a doctor of psychology, which I like quite a lot.
Yeah.
That's a good one. He's treating a patient who keeps seeing a mysterious wall of black when he's like taking his kid to the park, which would just be terrifying.
Yeah.
Frankly. And he does the classic therapy line. He's like, how does that make you feel?
I almost want this to be how Doctor Strange turns up in WandaVision. Like almost
totally.
like the Iron Man 3 post-credit scene. Like she's just sitting in a thing and it slowly pans to him. And you just slowly are like, oh wait, that's like wooden paneling. Like, where are we? Oh shit, it's the Sanctum. And then you get to Doctor Strange and it's like, that's the end credit scene. It's basically...
And she's like lying down.
Yeah, and he's like...
How does that make you feel?
How does that make you feel?
Yeah,
so good.
I would love that actually.
That would be sick.
Yeah. A little short one. In Russia, Colossus plows a field.
Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah, good
Happy
for
him. He's found a good life.
It's so good.
And
I like that.
then
Like that's what he'd always dreamed of as well.
Yeah, totally.
Because everything is like this is what these people always wanted.
He's a simple
He just
man.
wanted to be a farmer.
He just wanted to be a simple farmer.
The best.
So, just a fact: Namor was the first official Marvel superhero. So that's
really?
he's definitely there. He debuted in 1939, whereas Aquaman was 1941. So yes, Namor did come first. In general, he came first.
Yeah.
He came first before all of them. That's actually really interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't realize he was the first.
Because I think it was in a comic it was like he had a comic in there, and I think the Human Torch had a comic in there as well, from what I remember. But
Interesting.
yeah, I think they were the first
DC
two.
are the ones ripping it off.
Yep.
Yeah.
How could they?
Bunch of dicks.
Worst.
Speaking of dicks, though, Wolverine.
Yes.
This is usually out.
Yeah, definitely. So he awakens from a dream, and we just have another sexy woman. There's lots of sexy women. This very 2005 comic books. Just like lots of women who are not in enough clothes.
No.
And it's the same. We get Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
His like classic black outfit, which just looks so uncomfortable.
So strange.
So it's like there's definitely that element to it. He's woken up and he's in bed with Mystique, who's disguised as a redhead.
Yep.
And then he tries to stab her before she turns back into her true self, which, look, man, sort out your problems.
Yeah.
That's like, I get that you've awoken from a dream and it's an uncomfortable
Don't
dream,
stab someone.
but don't just go and stab the person you clearly just slept with.
Yeah.
That's not cool.
That's some Wonder Woman 1984 shit.
Oh, my God. Moving on from that mental damage, confused as all hell, he runs outside and he finds he's on a big shield helicarrier, but it's got all these big fancy M flags on it, and there's like flying sentinels around and flying planes, all with this M sigil, and we're like, oh my God, what's going on?
Yeah.
It couldn't possibly be the M that's in House of M, surely not.
No.
And yeah, that's I will say that this series is very good at cliffhangers.
It is every comic.
They're very good at leaving it at a very interesting point. And jumping to the viewer comments, the Dolphin Zone, SeaWorld as well. He's basically just like, old Steve Rogers, mutants everywhere. Gambit? Bootleg Gambit.
Yeah.
This is, I think, from... I think it's when they introduced Miss Marvel.
Yep. They're taking him down.
Yeah, and he's taking down Gambit, who is just a random bank robber.
Which is like, is that what he always wanted? He just wanted to rob
He
banks?
just wanted to rob banks with his fancy card powers.
Yeah.
I mean,
Badly
good for him
as
if that's
well.
what he wants.
Like,
yeah, because he just gets decimated by Captain Marvel. And I'm like, poor dude. Poor dude. If this is what he wanted, I feel very sorry for him.
He's a simple man.
One of the other... what's the word for it? One of the other vignettes we get.
Yeah, it's a good word.
Vignettes is a good word. Is in Hell's Kitchen. I think it's in the Hellfire Club. Basically, Detective Sam Wilson is one of the characters we get, and Dolphin Pants is like, Detective Sam Wilson is a spin-off I would like to read more of.
Yeah.
And I think that would also be very cool. But can you imagine if he still had the Falcon wings? So he was just like, I'm a detective with a cool hat. And
you
like,
can't get through doors.
But he can't get through doors. Yeah. And yeah, he also just says the art in this is so nice, which we've already talked about.
It's very nice. I worry he's going to say that every issue. Looking at the next comment, yeah, pretty much he says it again.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, good.
Much.
Thanks, Dolphin Pants.
Yeah, sorry. We appreciate the effort.
Yeah.
Anyway, going to issue 3, we start off with Wolverine, like we cut cut at the end of the last comic, and basically he's the only one that seems to have like still memories of the old reality, and he has this flash of, I think it's like a church with which Professor X is in.
Yeah.
I will say, I mean, we've all read the whole comics. You know, there's going to be spoilers and stuff, but like they never resolved the church.
No. Not
and
at
like I think it's maybe resolved in the follow-up comics or whatever, but it feels like a really weird thing that they tease multiple times that they never go into. He's just standing in this church with these random people around him, and they're just like, oh yeah, it's fine, whatever.
Yeah, it is a bit disappointing that there are some there's like a few elements. I mean, the whole comic ends at a point where I'm like, really? That's all I get.
It's definitely setting up some stuff, and I'll go into it like a little bit later, but basically they don't really pay it off that well. Like this is the iconic series, and like the stuff after it, not
just
as
a big
good.
old reset.
There's a reason why like a lot of the good recent comics are from like the 2010s rather than 2005, like the 2000 eras, because a lot of it back then was just like a lot of the same stuff, lots of like weird costumes, like the Miss Marvel stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas I would say in like the last 10 years, they really come back into their own, especially Marvel, I would say.
Yeah. I think, like in comic history in general, the 90s was a really bad time for comics. So the 2000s was probably them just being like, no, we're good. They're just trying so hard to come back.
Yeah.
That's literally what House of M was like, the 90s, hey, they were kind of bad. Let's
push that button.
Let's just
get
rid of all that.
Reset button.
I haven't read Days of Future Past. I assume it's a similar thing with Wolverine there, but it's interesting that like this, almost the entire setup here of when he wakes up and sees Mystique and everything, it feels like Days of Future Past. When he wakes up and he almost kills the girl and he's like freaked out and he's the only one that remembers everything. So I don't know if you've read Days of Future Past, but I wonder if this is just one of Wolverine's superpowers, is that he can just remember realities.
It could be. Maybe. I haven't actually read it, and I have seen the movie, but I do not remember much of it at all. Yeah. So it's a gap in my knowledge that I want to fill, hopefully.
Yeah.
Maybe we can do it on this show.
Yeah.
I'm also just trying to do it in general, but I need MCU to release more X-Men stuff so I can like...
To force us to care.
Force me to care, basically. Basically, Logan just jumps off the helicarrier in classic Logan fashion.
So good.
Because, of course, he's invulnerable or near invulnerable.
I hope so.
And it's just like, man... It's just a bit extra, really. Like, I don't think you need to go that dramatic. Like, you could have jumped onto a plane or something, maybe hijacked a plane.
No.
I don't know. Don't just jump into the city below you.
And also, it looks like it, and I know it can't, but it almost kills him. Like, he is destroyed.
He does not do well.
No.
Given what he does for the rest of this comic, I'm like, how fast did you heal from all that as well? Like, I get you have accelerated healing and stuff, but that was
a big fall.
Was something. Yeah. The next few pages are like a cutting of the newspaper The Pulse, which is I think that's just Marvel's like in-world newspaper thing that they have, other than the Daily Bugle. It's like it's a neat way to deliver basically a bunch of exposition about the House of Magnus and how mutants are in charge of everything. It's kind of nice, rather than it just all being in the text bubbles that it normally is. Yeah. The one thing I will say, I was like reading through all this stuff, and I was like, what are the Easter eggs here? What's in the news that I should care about?
Please.
And at the very bottom of it, there is this character called Lord Kevin Reginald Plunder, a human rights activist, and they're like announcing that he got asylum in the United States. And I'm like, who is this character? Like, this has got to be some kind of deep cut.
Yeah.
It is.
Good.
Kevin Plunder is a character called Kazar, who has a pet saber-toothed tiger called Zabu. He grew up in a region known as the Savage Land that's basically full of dinosaurs and stuff, and is stuck in time.
That's so good that they brought him through. That's amazing.
The most random, because everyone else is like someone you know in that. And then there's just this guy.
I'm pretty sure he shows up in, because I've read the I think it's Spider-Man and the X-Men where he's like looking after him, and that's the comic where, if you remember the panel where it's a dinosaur that's like, I know it could cure cancer, but I just want everyone to be a dinosaur, or whatever it is.
It's just like, that's definitely a character I never knew existed, but I'm so much happier now that I know it does, because it's always so fun with these random characters that they bring in, and you're like, who the hell is that? And then you go down the Google rabbit hole, and you're like, oh my god, man, someone was smoking something or something at some point. It was like, yeah, this is a good idea. We're gonna make this whole alternate reality. Very, very happy about that. I hope we get Kevin Plunder and the Savage Land at some point in live action.
Like his name in the name of the film is Kevin Plunder and the Savage Land.
Yeah, please.
It would be so good. I will say that I think I was reading, like, I didn't do too much reading into it, but I think they would have to rejig some of the lore they made for it, because it did seem quite culturally insensitive, unsurprisingly. But, you know,
we'll work out that.
It's not something that I would say the MCU is unfamiliar with doing.
Yep.
So that's fine.
I think we'd be good.
The rest of the comic is just Logan doing Logan things. He assaults a man, steals a bike, goes to the X Mansion, wakes up a kid in the middle of the night, then sees some other mutants bullying some humans, and then you see the classic snicked, and then he goes and beats them up or stabs them, or I don't know.
It's a good point.
Really very morally ambiguous character. It's just, I love that they just turn a complete blind eye to everything he does in this. Like, yeah, that's fine.
That's what he does.
It's just what he does.
He's only sexy and cool when he's Hugh Jackman. If he's in the comics, he is a murderer.
Exactly. Yeah. And we then get a very pretty chase scene with him as well, as Logan kind of uses the motorbike to escape. I think they're called the Red Guard, which is basically what Shield has been like reformed into like a special ops force, and they're all like mutants that work for Shield. That's the team Logan was a part of. But basically they all go and chase him. Nightcrawler does a bunch of his BAMF stuff.
Lots of BAMF.
Very cool. Yeah, lots of BAMF. I will say, like, the actual visuals for it in this comic are very pretty. I did like that a lot. And then Cloak appears, and shout out to Cloak. Cloak is very cool. We need more Cloak. He just like swallows Logan up in his darkness. He just appears on the street.
I haven't read much Cloak, so when he did that, I was like, yeah, sick. That's his power.
I wonder if that ever happened in the show, because that feels like an out there concept.
Well, it's also like the show was just a random ABC. Like, you can't find it anywhere. It surely didn't have that high of a budget, which, given like some of the visual effects they would need, is like very interesting. So I'm very curious.
I kind of want to track that down now.
I'm very curious to actually see if I can find some of that as well, and see if any of that was as cool as this sounds. Because if not, we need like more of that character. Like, he's very cool.
I'm gonna make the like random call that he probably knows Moon Knight, so just put him in Moon Knight.
Oh, totally. He knows Moon Knight in this.
Yeah,
so
cool.
I definitely,
check him in that show.
Probably does. They're all in like Hell's Kitchen or whatever.
That's true, yeah.
You know? And then the final page of this issue is very very cool.
It's very issue.
Very issue. It's got some big issues.
Hawkeye kind of pops up, which is cool because obviously he's supposed to be dead.
And also it's Hawkeye.
And also it's Hawkeye. And he's actually very cool in these comics, I will say. More cool than normal. Well, more cool than pre-Matt Fraction. And Luke Cage is there as well, and like a bunch of the other they're kind of like underground Avengers, I guess. And they stare down Logan, but it's just like Cloak looming over the top of them and Hawkeye aiming an arrow at them. It was very cool, and is like, take out your tracker. So yeah, it's a fun little Wolverine issue. He does some very questionable things, but it's good fun.
As usual.
Dolphin Pants this time from SeaWorld says, this cover, I don't remember off the top of my head what this cover is. I will bring it up when I edit this. But yeah, all of them are great, so I agree. And it's like, of course Logan remembers, which I agree. It's either Spider-Man, Logan, or like...
They've got 4 characters.
They've got 4 characters.
This is the cover.
Yes.
Wolverine on the motorbike.
It is actually, yeah. It is a good cover.
Crazy badass.
Is it Akira? What's the one with the red bike? That anime?
Oh yeah, it's very Akira.
Yeah. Totally got that.
That is sick.
Yeah. But yeah, it's always Logan, Spidey, and then they have random characters called Kevin Plunder. So you know, that's Marvel for you.
Clearly the best character.
Yeah.
Yeah, clearly. And then he's just like, I flew through this issue, loved this one.
Yeah.
Which I think he's kind of saying about all of them. So, you know, they're great.
It's a great series. Like, I'm actually... This is actually... And I don't reread comics, but I'm keen to reread this at some point to just enjoy it again. Because it was fun to read.
Yeah, that's probably why I read through it so fast, and I don't usually read that fast. I'm like, this is actually really interesting and really well written.
Yeah, and as I said, definitely like the 8 issues on their own flow together really well.
Yeah.
Like they very much like pick up. It's well paced. There's not like too much downtime. It feels very thought out, which, considering the origins we've talked about of this series, is quite funny.
Yep.
But yeah, going into issue 4, we get the first glimpse of Genosha, which is no longer completely wrecked. It's very pretty. It's all like white and spectacular, and there's a big tower called Castle Magnus. And then we have like Magneto just walking out with like cherry blossoms falling around him, which I was like, this is so unnecessary. It's very cool. And then back in Hell's Kitchen, Hawkeye shoots the tracker out of Logan's neck.
Yeah.
Which is,
of course he does,
very cool, very awesome. And like, again, where's this Hawkeye in like anything else pre-Matt Fraction? Because it's not there. I promise you, his character was not at all cool.
And it basically kills Wolverine.
Yeah, legitimately, like if Wolverine could not heal, he would be dead. And he just like slips in and out of consciousness as Hawkeye and Luke Cage argue about whether that was a good idea or not. Then when he comes back to consciousness, he's like, "You guys took too long. Now they're all here." And then Sentinels appear and just blow the whole place up.
What a sick sequence! Like I like.
Very cool.
Just seeing that in a film and just imagining you wouldn't actually hear their dialogue. It's like it'd just be muffled and on Logan.
Yeah.
And they'd crunch it down to be like 5 seconds as well, so that it's really
totally.
boom, boom, oh shit, boom. So
he wakes up and you're like, you took too long, and then it's just boom.
Yeah.
It'd be very, very cool.
So cinematic.
But basically the Sentinels just start wrecking the joint, and Cloak manages to evacuate everyone in time. This is where I wrote the note that I talked about earlier. Cloak is really cool. Give us more Cloak. He's just got like the coolest teleport powers out of anyone. He just like pulls out his cloak and sucks everyone in.
And he basically never talks. There's like
no, he doesn't.
I think he
either,
has like
true.
one piece of dialogue in this whole series, and it seems so. As I was reading it as if someone who could barely speak English or could barely just talk at all was trying to talk, as if he's saying like, "I'm going to talk now," kind of thing, like almost that. Like I read it as if he just did not talk.
I prefer not to.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. We get a line from Luke Cage where he's like, "What's an Avenger?" which is a line in WandaVision.
It is.
And now I'm like, I think Dolphin Pants pointed it out to me first. Then I read the comics after, and I was like,
that is a very good point. I mean,
and I'm like,
no, okay.
No, I was like, I wonder if that is like fully they pulled that out of it, or if it's just a line they use that is similar. But it feels like, given it was heavily inspired by this, it feels like something they pulled out of it.
Very intentional. There was a line, I think, in one of the last issues when everyone, you've read the comics, when they lose their powers and stuff. I think someone specifically is like, "I don't feel so good," and I know that's just a very like thing you say, totally. But I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's totally like, this is a random tangent, but I'm going to go on it for a second. I was watching a video about, I don't know if any of you have heard about the Matrix conspiracy, where people think it was stolen.
Oh, interesting.
By like this random writer wrote a book, and it's basically like both the Matrix and Terminator were ideas that were stolen from me, by Fox and 20th Century and Sony, or whoever did all of them. And basically, it's not the case at all. She's insane. And what it is the Terminator one specifically is just because at the start she wrote, like, it's about aliens or something, and someone in that book says they'll be back, and she based the entire fact that Terminator was stolen from her off that one sentence, and it's like, that's just a common sentence. Those are like, just it's words. A similar thing here. Yeah,
that's
like,
so funny.
That is fully just something can say, but it's funny to think about the idea that, like, oh, they read House of M and like, we want to put that line
one
in.
word.
I will say, keeping on that tangent, I met a guy in Melbourne who claims that Inception was stolen from his uni thesis. He's a teacher. What the hell was his thesis about? Amazing.
That's just throwing my brain through a loop. I'm like, who is this person? I kind of want to meet him.
That's great.
And then we get a big old exposition dump. It's one of those exposition dumps
Brian.
we talk about. Yep, thank you, Brian. Wolverine remembers everything. Hawkeye flips his crap because he's supposed to be dead, and then they teleport to Emma Frost to make her remember, because there's this kid there called Layla who can make people remember. She's basically the MacGuffin and the rest of it. She just like keeps. She's just like, you remember now. You remember.
Yeah.
I'll solve all these problems. You remember.
Like, when she turned up, I was like, are you anything? Am I supposed to know who you are?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Is
it's
she
like,
anything ever again after?
Yeah.
Dolphin Pants says, like, it's an interesting concept. I will admit, I think it's the one thing about this whole series that is quite lazy.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's the least interesting way they could have had people remember, just having a mutant who has those powers.
It's like Vision in the show, just going, he can just tap people's heads, and it's like,
Yeah.
but how? Like,
Yeah,
how does he
like-
do
Yeah.
that?
How did you learn to just change someone's electromagnetic brainwaves?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I get the purpose it's solving. It's like speeding it all
Yeah.
up, but I think they tie it back to like Wanda wanted them to work it out or something.
Yeah, it's
but
that
it
whole
just-
like it is same with WandaVision. It's like her subconscious is still fighting and stuff.
Yeah. Which is okay, I guess. Again, I think it could have been a bit better. Dolphin Pants does have some happy comments though. He's like, Hawkeye time, ! Which I agree. We're all very happy to see Hawkeye.
Always.
And Wanda made herself human. They do reveal in this comic that Wanda is the only human kid out of the 3 of Magneto, which I don't actually know if it's the case in the end. It seems like she was just projecting a version of her that was human, and she does still have her powers, but definitely an interesting plot line. And he mentions the What's an Avenger line as well, which, as we talked about, very cool. And issue 5. We start on a really beautiful page in this one. It's like a little psychedelic trip, because Emma Frost uses her brain hack powers, goes inside Layla's brain, and basically wants to work out how her powers work. And it's like, it's all very rainbow and pretty. I like this quite a lot.
And like slightly like gummy and brainy. Like, there's a few shots where you can just
There's
see
like some, there's some brain in it.
Yeah.
Weird.
And then Layla does the brain thing to Cyclops. Scott. What's his last name? I don't remember.
Summers.
Scott.
Yeah.
Scott Summers. That's it.
The worst man in the Marvel universe. He's just the worst.
Emma Frost has a great line here where she's like, "Why are we married?"
Yeah, exactly.
She's like, "Why is this the reality we both want?"
Yeah.
It's so good because he remembers and then basically throws up.
Yeah.
And then she's like, I know.
Yeah. Why did this happen?
So good.
And it's especially good because it like opens one of the I think it's issue 2. It opens with them being like really lovey-dovey and everything, and it's like hilarious that it cuts to this and they're just like, oh my god, how could it be? Do we have these deep-rooted desires that we're not aware of?
Yeah. Or did Wanda just ship us? Like, she's
Wanda
like,
was
in my
like,
universe, you go
that's what they
together.
Well, actually, given how Wanda does it,
They're
she's
action
hacking-
figures.
She,
Of course.
but she's using Charles Xavier's knowledge of everyone, so technically it's Charles that's shipping.
Charles ships his students together. Yeah.
Oh, that's so
not-
funny. That's totally...
That's what
that
teachers
totally
do.
happens.
Yeah.
That totally happens in the staff room.
Actually,
Can
no, it
confirm.
does. Yeah, no. But it's...
I think we've just cracked the code of that plot point.
Oh, man, that's brilliant. I love that. I love that I went really in depth to think about that one, because I'm so much happier now. And basically, I'm going to call these guys the Remember Gang.
Nice.
Because I couldn't come up with a better name, and I didn't want to say the people, all that. So the Remember Gang go and visit Peter Parker next.
Yep.
Peter Parker next, and Peter remembers. I'd say this is the coolest flashback because we get like all the iconic Spider-Man moments.
Yeah.
I think it's Death of Gwen Stacy is one of them. Got like Otto Octavius, Green Goblin, like all in their like iconic costumes.
Meeting Mary Jane is just as traumatic as Gwen dying.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
They're all like, it's such a good. Oh, this whole section is really good because Peter's whole realization of what he's going through is like the most heart-wrenching of all.
Yeah,
and
it's
there's
intense.
there's a page here where he's like in the panels. It's him looking at Gwen and Uncle Ben, who are alive in this reality, as in the background Gwen Stacy's dead body is just hanging, and he's just going through it all, being like, "What is going on?"
Yeah.
It's
like
so intense.
This person I'm married to and have a kid with is not actually alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and my uncle is also dead.
Yeah, and it's so crazy to think, because I think they bring this up as well, that all of these people have two sets of memories overlapping each other now. Like, they remember their entire life in this reality, but they also now, being in the Remember Gang, have their previous memory as well. That would freaking mess you up.
That'd be terrible.
Yeah, totally.
And it very much does to Spidey.
No,
he breaks tables.
He breaks tables. He's the third person who mentions that he wants to kill Magneto and his kids. So everyone's just like gone full, not so much Remember Gang, but Murder Gang.
Murder Gang. I reckon the buzz cut is what did it to him. It's not the memories.
Yeah, no.
If he didn't have that buzz cut, he wouldn't want to kill kids.
He looked through it all and he was like, "Oh man, Gwen's alive. Oh, Uncle Ben's alive.
I had hair,
but I had hair. You serious? And I cut it off in this one."
Idiot.
And then basically, like, the next little bit is the Remember Gang just going and doing the thing on a bunch of Avengers and X-Men, but then they leave Steve alone.
So lovely.
They're like,
who?
They're like, he's useless.
Joking. I don't know.
They're basically like, he's useless. He didn't get stuck in the ice. He's old now.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. We'll just leave him alone.
Yeah.
And I'm happy for him.
Yeah.
Frankly, except I don't think he's with Peggy. I think Peggy is dead.
Yeah, she probably would be.
I think
by this
there's
point.
a Captain America tie-in where Peggy dies earlier, so I don't know how happy he is actually at this point. Anyway, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I also love the fact that Steve doesn't remember any of it. He's one of the people who doesn't remember at the very end. He's like, I don't remember anything of what went on. It's like, probably good.
Yeah.
Probably a good thing. And yeah, basically, we're now at the point where everyone remembers. The Remember Gang is just the Avengers and the X-Men all together. And they have a meeting to discuss what to do next. But Hawkeye doesn't want his memories restored, which is also fair enough because Logan has told him he's dead.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't want to know how I died. That's pretty messed up. And then there's a little bit of conversation, which I really like, where they're like, we all need to put our nervous breakdowns on hold. We get this is messed up. We all need to just chill out. Spidey, chill out. Luke, chill out.
Yep.
Just everyone relax, which I thought was very neat. It's like, we all need to collectively agree that this is a messed up situation.
Yeah.
And then this is my favorite part. This is me being real comic book nerd. We get Lorna, who is the third kid of Magneto, who most people probably will not know about.
Yeah.
I will say what she's wearing again, also hilariously impractical and sexualized unnecessarily.
Especially when she's just on an island with her family.
Oh yeah, totally.
Like, it just seems to be like her dad and her brother and sister.
Yeah, it's like, I don't think so. I don't think it's necessary. But basically, she's like the third child that everyone forgets about. Her name is Polaris in the comics. She's basically got a bunch of Magneto's Magneto's powers. And she just like falls by the wayside. But I hope they bring her in at some point. That would be cool. I think she's a very, I wouldn't say interesting character because I don't really flesh her out much because obviously she's the forgotten kid. But I think they could do a classic MCU thing where they kind of like flesh out the character within the world, and then that gets the character more comics and that kind of thing.
The reason I had a reaction was I think Polaris is, and I don't know if you mentioned this, I might have zoned out, but she's actually in the Runaways TV series they did.
Is she?
Yeah, so she's one of the characters in that. And I got her action figure because she came with green magic hands, and I needed them for Mysterio. That's the only reason I bought her figure.
Oh damn! I'm definitely watching Runaways now.
Yeah, so there is a version of her in that show, and that's why the name was familiar as well, because I was trying to work out who is this figure I own.
Nice. There you go.
There you go.
Actually, I do remember when I initially found out about Polaris, I did some research and I was like, she was in that.
She's got green
I really
hair.
need to watch that show. Yeah, she does. It is the same character, which is cool. Cool.
Cool.
Yeah, just maybe give her more.
Yeah,
I think she's cool and she's green. I like green. Anyway, we then go to the Charles Xavier Memorial Garden, which is like pretty big reveal, and it states he died so Genosha could live. So it's like, oh my god, Charles is dead.
Yeah.
Another cliffhanger.
And we're all like, no, he's not. We saw him at the start of this series.
Yeah, it's the classic comic book consequence thing. You're like, he's not going to be dead.
He's not dead.
Yeah. They never really resolve where he's alive, how he's alive, but he's alive.
He is.
And we got back in SeaWorld,
Yeah.
Dolphin Pants, is saying, I like the band getting back together scene, which I really hope is done at some point in the MCU. I feel like that was Infinity War and all that.
Yeah.
I feel like they've done that at this point.
A little bit,
Yep.
yeah.
But
Splitting them up.
yeah, I feel like there's not really, as Will said, there's not really enough characters left to do it very much at this point, but that's fine. Well, maybe it would be cool to get like smaller get-togethers, I think.
Yep.
Seems to be what they're doing in some of the films. And then we got Peter's life flashing before his eyes is brilliant, which we talked about, all the little Easter eggs and cool moments, flashback stuff. And he also says, I really like Logan and Peter being friends. Take notes, Feige. Yeah. Do we think Hugh Jackman Logan, do we think he'll come back if he knows the films are going to be good?
I don't, it's like he could, but Logan is such a great finality to the character that it would just feel wasted if he ever did come back. Like, it's not even about the fact that he could still do it. It's just like, I feel like it's done, and you don't want to backtrack on that.
Yeah.
So would you want a different...
Yeah.
Like a recasted Wolverine, or would you want like a X-23?
X-23 could be cool. I think they'll definitely do a recast, just because they know that character is going to bank.
Totally will. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I do remember there was an interview with Hugh Jackman who basically said, like, I'd come back for the MCU.
Yeah, he totally did.
But whether he actually does or would. Or
probably a cameo, I would say, at best.
Yeah. Well, there was that thing of Deadpool 3 being a road trip movie a la Logan, but it would be with Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
That should be great.
And then the final thing Dolphin Pants says is Professor X is dead, ... Nice. That's how you read that?
Yeah,
sure.
Nice. How lovely.
Very, very lovely. I don't have a lot for issue 6.
Yeah.
But that's because it's kind of just a lot of them like prepping for what's about to happen. Basically, Emma sneaks the Remember gang onto the SHIELD helicarrier and basically mind controls everyone controlling the ship to take them to Genosha. And then in Genosha, they're preparing for the big anniversary event, and like Victor Von Doom, Storm, Black Panther, all those people are about to arrive.
Yeah.
And it's very cool. I will go a bit into like what those characters do in this House of M world in a little bit when I go through like the tie-ins, because there's some cool stuff there. There's also some less cool stuff, I will say. But the Victor Von Doom stuff is especially very cool. I'm excited to talk about that. And Luke Cage tries to get hold of his wife in the other reality, which is Jessica Jones, but finds out she's with someone else. And I thought this was very reminiscent of the teacher in Far From Home who's like, my wife... I thought, Will's gonna remember better.
Oh yeah, because he's like, oh, I found out. I thought my wife was gone in the blip, but really she wasn't. She just got with another guy.
Yeah.
So
like, oh man, every time I watch that scene, I'm like, man, it's so unnecessary, but so good.
And the fact it goes to the point where he's like, we had a funeral for her and everything.
So good.
Yeah.
I love that Marvel hang on and use to like the best of their ability really sad random like side characters. They've got that. They've got whatever his name is in WandaVision.
Yeah.
What's his name?
What?
David Schwimmer.
Yeah, David Schwimmer.
Yeah, David Schwimmer.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that they're just using that. They just have these sad characters.
Just punching bags.
Yeah, it's
the
so
poor
good.
guy, no one knows his actual name. No. We're all just like, he's not David Schwimmer.
David Schwimmer.
Best.
And then they talk a lot about 3 teams.
Which just...
They're doing 3 teams.
Yeah, it's like, as soon as I read that, I was like, oh, it's Endgame. It's just Endgame.
And it's like, yeah, cool. You didn't need to say that 10 times.
Yeah, oh god.
But it's funny because the 3 teams is like one of one person, one of 2 people, and then the rest of them, wasn't it? Like,
totally. It's not really actually 3 teams.
No, not teams. One guy's going by himself.
Yeah.
It's Doctor Strange going off.
And then Emma and Lila or whatever.
Emma and the little girl going off, and then the rest of them having a war. It's not teams.
For like something they put so much focus on, it's like
Incorrect.
why? Like, you didn't even do that.
Yeah, just say, here's the plan.
Yeah.
Doctor Strange, you do this, we're going to do this, you guys distract them.
Whatever it
Done.
takes.
Yeah. And then we like get the start of the fight, which is basically a Sentinel, which seems to have been like hacked by the Avengers or something, comes crashing down towards the Gathering. And the first time I read this, I thought it was just Magneto doing it. But if you look closely, it's Lorna and Magneto both using their powers together to stop the Sentinel, like their magnetic powers, which I thought was very cool as a big Lorna fan.
Yeah, nice.
And
That's
then
right. That's why Polaris and Lorna's made up, because you had it as your friggin' Discord icon. That's why it's in my brain.
And Will was like, what is
Who is this
Discord
person?
And he was like, it's probably some really obscure comics in it. I was like,
Yep.
Yep, it is. And then my final comment for this one is, why do all the comics I pick have people phasing into graves? Because
That's a good point.
Cloak just phases into what could be the grave of Charles Xavier to check if his body is there.
Yeah.
Which is very similar to Viv doing the same thing in the Vision comics. And I need to like vet these before I do it or something, because that concept for me is like really effed up.
Yeah.
And now every time I like had to see it twice, and I'm like, are you serious? We need to... Surely Falcon and the Winter Soldier won't have that, right?
Yeah, I don't think so. Maybe they phase into Steve Rogers' grave.
We've got to do the what's the Spider-Man story where one of them is just like in the ground and
well, that's Craven's last
hand
song.
out.
Yeah. When Spider-Man's in the ground. Yeah.
So it's like that's close enough.
That's close enough. We might need that for
That's
Spider-Man 3 apparently. So there you go. We got it.
Done.
It's
Ben.
falling apart.
My brain is just exploding at like every time I realize like all the little bits of MCU knowledge that I have that I will probably need to pull on at some point in the next few years, and it's like what part of me regrets knowing this much, and another part of me is like, this is really cool.
Yeah, the part of me that regrets is the one that's excited for Eternals, because I'm not touched on those comics. I'm excited to just know nothing about that.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
that'll be fun.
Yeah. Yes, their comics are okay.
Yeah.
And then Dolphin Pants' comments for these ones are 3 teams, which
Three
we
teams.
also pointed out.
Teams.
3 teams. And then Xavier is alive, surprise, because comics.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, very much so. Then moving into issue 7, this is the big penultimate battle issue. Classic comic book move, classic media move, really. The penultimate thing is the big battle.
Thing. Lots of double pages and...
Really, there's some, I will say, across like all these comics, there's some really good double page spreads. I screenshotted a bunch of them on my phone. I might probably chuck some of them in the edit, because they're like, they're just beautifully done and really use all the space very impressively. I will say it's very good battle, very good final battle. Is as far as final battle issues go. I like it a lot. There's lots of cube magic. Wanda has a lot of cubes, does a lot of stuff with cubes. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
Part of me is, I don't know, I've never been a big fan of like Scarlet Witch's.
You gotta say cubes.
Like the way
I was like, that's a weirdly specific thing.
I like cubes a lot. But I've never been a big fan of Scarlet Witch's like magic, how it's depicted within the MCU. I actually don't think it's particularly interesting. The visual effects they use, it's just like wispy magical powers. I like how they I think it was last night's episode, how they did the hex. That it actually looks like more angular and that kind of thing when you look at it from afar. But I kind of, so seeing how her powers are kind of depicted in this, I think is a lot cooler. I mean, I hope they do more of that in MCU, but look, it seems like they're pretty sold on the
just twisty hands.
Twisty hands, which is fine. If that's how they're going to do it, at least they've made Agatha's purple.
Yeah, that's true.
That
I will say, I think that like the best thing about Wanda's powers in the MCU is what Elizabeth Olsen is doing with her hands. But in this show, they've just covered it with light every time. I'm like, I can't even see her thing.
Yeah, there's so much.
Yeah, because like her and Benedict Cumberbatch put so much effort into the actual hand movements and like learning the hand language, and it's like
they just slap shit all over it. Yeah.
I've just had a sudden thought, unrelated to this, but more on the WandaVision and the fact that Agatha's hands are purple. There's a video by, I think it's a guy called Rasputin on YouTube. He's great. He does really, really good video game essays and stuff. Sure, it was him. And he does one on purple is the color of corruption.
Cool.
Which is interesting, and like it's how that's depicted throughout, like even history, because a lot of what do you call it? Like knights, not knights, like kings and queens and stuff.
It's a royal
years and years ago
as well. Yeah,
it was a royal color because you could barely get it anywhere. It was very expensive at the time and stuff like that. And often those people were corrupt, and so it continued to be used as a color of corruption, especially in video games. Like a lot of goopy stuff is usually purple, tentacles and
all
stuff.
Of Dishonored.
So yes, and so it's kind of just suddenly realizing like that you pointed out.
Yeah,
she is the corruptor.
Yeah, as a big fan of the color purple, I will say that it is very true. It is like full on like anything Void related. Lovecraftian related, all that stuff, always purple, which is fine. I like that kind of stuff, but it's anyway, let's move back to House of M. I was like, I don't know where I'm gonna go with that, so it's fine. It was a cool little tangent. And then we get a cool, like, heartbreaking scene between Wanda and Pietro, which is basically, like, them discussing what's gone down. First of all, Wanda, like, fades away in Pietro's arms, and he's like, what the hell? Where did she go? And then we learn that she was, like, projecting it all.
Yeah.
And Wanda is basically... So I think before this, I kind of cut out, because I'm going to skip over it. It's a lot of exposition, but it's her and Doctor Strange talking a bunch about what's going on. And we find out that basically they cut back to the conversation between Wanda and Pietro at the very start, and this is where we have this conversation gets like extended, and Wanda says, am I a coward for not wanting to kill myself even though I know I should? And Pietro's like, we never had a chance. Magnus chose his mutant race over us. We were just little kids and he abandoned us. Even so, we fought hard to get out from under it all, because they're both debating the fact that like they shouldn't resist this. Like, Wanda needs to accept that she's causing these problems, but they're like chatting through it as like siblings do, and are like, the root of all these problems is our dad. We have dad issues. But the whole thing is like heartbreaking, because it turns out that Pietro is the one that like instigated this whole thing. As Will said earlier, he's often an arsehole. He's often a bad guy. And it's like everyone across this whole series is like, Magneto's to blame. He's done this. I can't believe he's done this. I'm going to kill him and his kids. But it was Pietro all along.
It was the dude.
Yeah. Which is just like the whole conversation, once they like extend it out and flesh it out, is really, I would even recommend going back and rereading it if you've read it again, just like reading it in detail, because it's so well done. And then Pietro just gets really angry. Goes really fast.
Yeah, I love that. It's like when you're speaking that fast, I can't even tell. It's just a frame of him just going. It's like,
that was brilliant. Yeah, I think that one was back in the first issue, and then in this one, they have. I think it might be like a double page. It's either a double page or a single page, and it's just a bunch of the Avengers and X-Men saying "Watch out for Pietro," but it's cut up into different these bubbles as he like speeds through all of them.
Yeah,
it's very well done.
It's basically the same in Age of Ultron, where he's just like decking everybody throughout the little carrier.
Yeah, totally. And then Magneto gets really mad. Another very great page is literally hurling balls of metal at his son, and is screaming at him, what right did you have to do all this?
Yeah.
And then it's basically, this is just the Maximoff Magnus family just sorting out their problems in front of the entire Avengers and X-Men.
No, that sounds like a family issue. I don't want to hurt your sister.
Yeah. And Wanda just like floats down and suspends her father in the air and floats down to her brother's body and heals him.
Yeah.
And just like holds her father there while she's healing him. And then confronts her father. And my note here is basically this is now just a family kitchen table fight. And Wanda literally blames him for everything and is like, yes, I did this, but you were the reason why I did all this. You ruined us before we even had a chance. You're still a horrible person. I did this because I thought this was what you wanted, but what you wanted was not good.
Yeah.
And so he gets the Bad Dad Award of the year. Congratulations to Magneto. Real bad dad. basically, he's like his whole vision of mutant supremacy destroyed, even those the closest to him, which is like pretty messed up, pretty heavy stuff.
Yeah.
And like, basically he's to blame for it all, even though he wasn't the one that instigated it. That's the vibe we get. But still, shout out to Pietro for really just
Hammer it home.
still messing it all up. Like he was the like, yeah. Magneto was the one that set up the nail for his son, and then Pietro was like, "Yeah, let's go."
Super speed, just nailed it straight through the freaking coffin.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we get the iconic "No More Mutants" line, which is obviously the most iconic thing to come out of this. At the very end, we get a flash of white, and all the X-Men are like, "Oh no!" But, well, man, it's such a good ending. I mean, I'm sure all of us have seen it at some various point before this, but it doesn't like remove the impact of it. As Wanda is just going off, and then it's like, you know what? No more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's that friggin' power, man. Just got too much.
Totally.
Just jumping back into this issue.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's meant to be funny, because so much of this comic isn't funny. It's so like serious and intense.
Yeah.
But just after Wanda is disappearing from Pietro's arms, kind of like because the projection is breaking up or whatever, and then they go and confront Wanda about it. I just love the line that she's like, "Yeah, I project my body. Why? Did something happen to it? Like, do I need to make another
Do
one?"
we need to make another one? Yeah.
She's just she's so oblivious to like everything else that's going on outside.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure
That's
Doctor
when
Strange has to like
Sorry,
yeah.
go.
Yeah, Doctor Strange has to like tap her on the shoulder and be like, "You do realize everyone's fighting over you outside."
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where all the cubes just open up
Yeah.
in the wall, and you just see this like basically this blazing fire
It's,
just happening outside.
It's Star Wars.
Yes,
It's like, would you like to see your friends burning outside? Look over that window, Luke Skywalker. Look how fucked that
totally.
is.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
great.
I honestly skipped over it all, but like the whole stuff with Doctor Strange and going into like the astral realm is very cool.
Yeah.
It's cool.
And then I like the cubes. That's the main thing.
You
I
like
took
those
out of it.
cubes?
Good cubes.
I like the cubes. And then we going back to Ocean. I only said Ocean World.
World, yeah.
See, well,
What is it?
We're breaking
SeaWorld. That's
down
what it's
here.
called. Yeah. Oh man. At least it's not 2 hours this
No.
time. I'm just gonna say that.
Don't say it now.
Oh yeah, true. And Dolphin Pants says, "Man, this battle is sick." We agree. This is the Wanda we know and love now. Yep, definitely is. What would you have me do? Who says that? I think that's Wanda.
Surely.
It's like, what would you have me do?
I think
it's to Doctor Strange. Yeah. But yeah, no, her delivery and all this, and also I'll mention the twins. There's like a version of the twins that is in this, and they're very creepy. And they're just like, "Mum doesn't want us. We're playing right now.
Yeah.
Leave us alone." It's terrifying.
Don't like it.
I hate them.
very robotic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Dolphin Pants is like, "So Pietro is the key to all of this. Disney Plus is reading this." Yeah, I'm pretty sure they did read this entire comic.
Yeah, definitely did.
Yeah. Clint takes her down, and they have such a bond in the MCU. Feige, do this, please. The thing is, he doesn't take her down though. She just like cubes the arrow, which is like, and then she just like goes, "Hawkeye, you're dead.
You're out of here.
I don't even. So he disappears. So he's dead in the real world. Then he comes at the start of this. Then he disappears for a few issues. Then he comes back with like, and shoots her. Then the arrow gets like cubed, and then he gets cubed, and he seems to be alive at the end. It's very confusing.
Yeah, which I guess is still that. It's still not the right reality. So I guess she's just rewritten it because he's not.
Yeah.
He's not alive here. Like he's basically the vision of these comics, where it's like
That's true.
you don't actually exist in any form.
Yeah. And then the last couple of comments, that's one realistic Lego Hawkeye, which I loved. And then, she said the line.
Did say that line.
Yeah, she did say the line. I think a lot of us who think WandaVision could be like a reverse House of M is like the more known, more mutants.
Yeah.
I would love it if they did it. I don't think they
No.
will, but it would be very cool.
It is because I've always been against it, but this is like made me understand it a bit more, because I was like, no, because then you're like just starting mutants and all that, but like it would be rewriting history, so you can just be like, yeah, no, Charles Xavier has existed forever. Like, it is actually a pretty good loophole, but...
Yeah. I mean, my theory was that the Hex was just going to keep expanding and then it'd activate the genes, but I'm less certain about that, especially after, like, the Monica stuff.
That's like, that feels like it. That felt like the only thing I wanted.
That feels like it, but I don't know. It would be cool. Less certain it's going to happen at this point.
I just want more X-Men. Let's just move on. Let's get to them.
More X-Men. We just need to get to it. Like, just put them in somehow so we're there.
Yeah.
Like, you got to do it. However you do it, if it kind of sucks, that's fine. Just
we can move on.
Yeah. And so the last issue, wrapping everything up, but not really.
I just super quickly want to say here, I watched a TikTok theory thing. Don't know if it's going to happen, but it was just an interesting idea. Back onto WandaVision again.
Yes.
Being Monica, like you guys saying, Monica probably the only person to get powers out of all of this. And I know in one of our previous podcasts, Will, I sort of said, I wonder if Darcy's going to get any. And it was kind of expanding on that idea. And she actually found a comic character who Darcy could be, because what Darcy was trying to do leading up to her going through the Hex and stuff was uncover the lies of S.W.O.R.D.
Yep.
And there is a character in there who looks
sick,
pretty much like Darcy, who has the ability to tell any, like, to be able to decipher any lie.
Cool.
And see through any lie.
Okay.
And she becomes friends with Loki, and Loki, so like she's the only person who can see through any of Loki's lies.
Cool.
So then she just hangs out with Loki and stuff. So it's like, I wonder if Darcy's just gonna get that ability, then hang out with
and
Loki
then
through the
work
Loki
with
series.
the Time Agency in the next show. Like she just goes from
just
S.W.O.R.D.
agency
to Time Agency.
So is Kat Dennings just going to take over the MCU?
Apparently.
Pretty much.
There's some people on the internet that would be thrilled about that.
And then some less so.
But, I kind of doubt that's going to happen, but I just thought it was
That's
an
pretty
interesting
cool.
thing, and hearing about a character that I hadn't heard about before, I had no idea about.
Totally.
Just a cool little addition. But yeah, the comic book character looks pretty similar to how Kat Dennings looks, so...
Bit of Ned Leeds skanky action.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Interesting.
There you go. All right, now onto the final issue.
Final issue.
Which is, as I said, wrapping everything up, but
not really.
Kind of not. So, like, everything's back to normal, you think, for a second. But it's not.
Yep.
Spider-Man wakes up next to Mary Jane again at Avengers Tower.
Yep.
And my favorite, I don't know how I noticed this, Mary Jane has Bart Simpson on her mug.
That is my one note from this issue.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's
a Bart Simpson cup. And this happened well before Disney owned Marvel and Fox and was able to combine them together. So why the hell she has this Bart Simpson cup? No idea.
An artist must have just done it for some reason and was like, yeah, this will be cool.
I mean,
it's
weird. The Simpsons, if they were taking a break, the Simpsons are the easiest things to draw. So maybe he was just fuck it, this is easy. Here we go, Bart Simpson.
I need something to go on this mug. It can't be a blank white mug at all. So.
Bart Simpson will do.
Spiky hair, yellow skin.
Yeah.
Why not?
Who could it be, Josh?
It's just so random, but I love it.
Yeah.
It's great.
And then we cut to Emma, and she's at the X Mansion, and basically all the kids have lost all their powers. And I think, like, the scene with her putting on Cerebra and, like, the whole map of the world where they normally have the Avengers all... No, Avengers?
Mutants,
where they have the mutants all show up with their, like, tracking their genes. And it's just, like, empty is, like... genuinely terrifying, especially with, like, Beast going crazy next to her being like, no, that's not what's happening. And it's like, yep, no, it very much is.
And the madness of everything happening in the mansion reminds me a lot of the madness happening in the hospital when everyone comes back after the blip. It's kind of like parallels like that, because everyone's just like, oh my gosh, what is happening? And everyone's freaking the hell out because no one knows what's going on.
That's a good point.
Not many people remember.
The more I think, the more we talk about this, the more I'm like, okay, they fully pulled, like, bits and pieces from this. They just use them in very different ways, which I think is very cool.
Absolutely.
It wasn't like, then it's not like, oh, they're using House of M in that they're like messing with reality stuff. No, they're just using iconic bits from it for completely different reasons, which I think is actually a very interesting way of pulling from like these iconic comics.
Yeah, I love Iceman coming out as well, and he's just sweating. He's like, never felt like warmth or anything like this before. So good.
Yeah. We get William Stryker pop up on the one of the TVs at the Avengers Tower. He's the next Men bad guy, for those who don't know. But he was in a lot of the X-Men films.
Yeah, so he's always played by someone else, so it's always confusing when someone's like, oh, it's Stryker. I'm like, is it? Oh, yeah, okay, maybe it is.
Yeah,
sure, why not?
And he basically uses this as an opportunity to exclaim like that it's a victory for God against muted kind, and it's like, man, what an asshole.
Messed
All
up.
these people is just like having this big traumatic event, and you're just like, glory be to God.
This is what I want. It didn't cost me anything.
No.
It certainly sounds like the church on television.
Yeah, it's very representative of the real world a lot of the time, to be honest. And Doctor Strange is just like full on having a breakdown. He's like, this is the kind of thing I was supposed to stop, and I didn't. I can't locate Wanda. I don't know what the hell's going on. Because it's great. They like pop all the Avengers pop back in, and they're all like in their normal suits. Some of them remember their stuff, some of them don't.
Yeah.
And then there's just one panel of Doctor Strange, and he's just really not having a good time in the corner, and you're like, man. Poor dude. He's tried his best.
Yeah, and then that's where Spider-Man starts screaming at him and breaks the table.
Breaks the table.
Make me forget! It's like so intense,
Scoop out my memories. It's like, that's not how that works.
I feel like this is the most adult Peter Parker ever. Because even when he's like an adult, usually it's like, oh, he still looks like 20 something. But this is like, this looks like a traumatized adult.
No, totally.
Yeah.
It's like it's more than like Spider-Verse.
Yeah, totally.
Adult Peter Parker. It's like on a different level. It's like, no, I've had all these problems, and now I have 2 sets of memories, and it's like he's one of the ones who kept both sets as well, which I think is really messed up. I don't know how they dealt with that beyond this, but it's like, God, can you imagine going and just spending all your time with Mary Jane and being like, oh no.
Yeah, because he's just got traumas on traumas now. Like, that dude does not have a good life.
No. And then this is a bit where we get Hawkeye's outfit pinned up, like I said earlier. It's a very cool little reveal. You don't really know what it means, but it's cool nonetheless. Then back in Genosha, Magneto, he walks through the ruins and he tries to like magnet a fork, and he's lost his powers, so he's one of the people who got I think they call it the decimation or something. So he's one of the people who got decimated. And then the Avengers just come and attack him at his lowest point. And they're like, where is Xavier? Where is Wanda? We'll kill you. And he's like, I can't even do anything.
No, it's like, it's literally the same from Endgame, where it's like, this Thanos can't do anything now. What do you just leave him alone?
He's just lost all his powers. Like, what are you doing? And then it wraps up. Hank Pym says, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. So I'm asking, what will be the reaction? And then Dolphin Pants asks, what will be the reaction, Ben? What is the reaction? So I did a little bit of digging because I haven't read. There's a few extra stuff. There's the one I've been meaning to read is called Son of M. It follows Pietro after all of this, but it also doesn't look that good. But I'm curious nonetheless. Basically, just does a bunch of stuff with the Inhumans. He's married to one of the Inhumans.
Yeah, right.
It's not very consequential to House of M, I think, even though they're like advertised it as a big follow-up.
Yeah.
And then there's like there's a whole extra series and like wrap-ups and stuff called House of M Decimation that deals with the fallout of it. Again, I don't think it was ultimately that consequential. I could be wrong. Feel free to correct me, but I think it was very much... This event was very cool, but then everything that followed on from it was like, okay, now we're just trying to solve all the massive problems we just created from doing a very cool thing.
So most Marvel events, where it's like there's 8 great issues, and then after that there's like maybe 4 months of them going, oh fuck, what have we done? Let's just let's do it again.
Try to fix it.
I was watching a video yesterday. It's like in Secret Wars, which was the one that like brought all their realities together. It's like in that, the way they finally solve it, there's like, what's his name? Molecule Man is in like the void or something, and literally the only way he can fuse the realities together is if he eats food because he's hungry. And so Miles pulls a hamburger out of his pocket and gives it to him. And Peter is like, we've been here for 3 weeks. What is this hamburger doing here? Why haven't you eaten it? Like, and that's literally like the thing that fuses the ultimate
that's wild.
Marvel reality and the Marvel like 616 together.
Holy shit.
And it's just like they all these events, they're just like, they clearly have like an idea for it.
Yep.
And like some of it is really good, at least with House of M. They like pulled it all off in the main series, but then the way they tie up the whole, sometimes
crazy.
it's hilarious like that. Other times
so
it's like just really lame.
I love Marvel.
Yeah.
It's so good. They do this all the time, and it's something DC never do.
They
From what
don't
I
have
can
fun.
tell. Nah, there's no fun
Yeah.
or ridiculousness over
No.
there. Not
That's
that much.
hilarious, though. Wow.
Yeah.
Love it.
Anyway, but yeah, basically, you can do a bit more research into like the follow-up from it, but from what I can tell, there isn't a lot of super interesting stuff. But that's fine, because this is a great run of comics. Like, it doesn't need to have a cool follow-up. I think just the concept of them doing all this, creating an alternate reality, then Wanda being like, no, that's not that's not what we want, and just going fully the other way is very cool. I mean, it would be cool to see some kind of follow-up to it that was held a candle to it, but
That's not how comics work.
I'm intrigued. I don't know whether this
Yeah.
is answered, and I missed it. I probably did. I don't think it's answered. But, like, the main X-Men still have their powers?
It seems to be all the ones that, like, were in the know.
They seem... Yeah,
I think
they
that's
seem
a little bit of what it is.
Yeah, they seem to still have their powers after this, because Wolverine doesn't die like they thought that it might happen.
yeah.
And Emma Frost
Yeah,
was
she was still able to
see
kind of-
stuff.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, yeah, it's kind of weird. I
Yeah.
wonder whether
Yeah.
in some of these follow-up things there's an explanation as to why, or whether they're just like, some mutants still need their powers, don't they? Come on.
Yeah, they
Yeah, it's like, why, if there's no more
Yeah.
mutants, why didn't you just get rid of all?
Yeah.
Like,
There's like a flashback, and actually, what she really said was
only
a few
some
less
mutants."
mutants. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So there's a couple other viewer comments. I'll start with Dingo's, just for like the overall thing. Dingo says, the M in House of M stands for Moon Knight.
Cheers.
Which,
Thanks, Dingo.
Thanks, Dingo. Thanks for your input, as usual. Moving on to Jade, who actually has stuff to say.
Yeah.
I'm usually all for what-if stories, but they can come across as having low stakes since we assume that eventually everything will be put back the way it was after. You know, they wake up and it was all a dream. I think House of M found a great way to avoid this by making the stakes personal. You just got everything you ever wanted in the alternate world. Are you sure you want to go back? But what about the relationships you left behind in the previous world?
Yeah.
That's very true. They have like a whole little bit where they're discussing that, I think, in issue 6 or 7. And it's like very much like, oh man, like the actual ethics of putting everything back together and would the world be the same and that kind of thing. It's like, you've got to properly think about it. So I totally agree with that. And then they say Peter's arc in House of M really sells this. He's lost MJ, but to do the right thing, he'll have to lose Gwen again, Ben again, and lose a son. And he has seen proof that he was holding MJ's career back. He starts House of M arguing against killing Wanda, then is so enraged by it all that he's willing to kill her. Then is so enraged by it all that he's willing to kill her and her family himself, which is like very true. Peter, kind of the star of this, other than Wanda, which
Yeah.
He's the
weird
star of
because
Marvel.
it's not focused on him.
It's what we were
but,
saying
you know,
before. Like
Yeah.
everything
He's the star of
revolves
Marvel. It's very
Spider-Man.
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, before MCU, no one knew Marvel characters other than like
Yeah.
Spider-Man, Hulk, and maybe Wolverine.
Yeah.
So,
Totally.
overall, what a great story, great choice. Dumb comments for your amusement. When we first see Beast arriving with X-Men, honestly, I felt so bad that they put him in that costume. Surely that would chafe the fur, which, yeah, the costume, the X-Men costumes is quite funny. They're very tight.
Yeah.
Very
the,
tight.
The 2000s, right?
And then during the
Yeah.
the 2000s. I'm glad they've got a lot better at making costumes. Man, some of the costumes these days that they have, very good.
Sick.
Again, Thor 2020, read it.
Cool.
Has Thor's coolest
I've
costume,
just
in my opinion.
I've just put it to my reading list, and it is the Fortnite costume.
Yeah, it's the Fortnite costume, but it's a cool costume.
It is a cool costume.
during the discussion at the start about what to do about Wanda, there's a frame where Captain America is standing next to Emma and says Avengers, and then Jade says, look at his broken legs. And I'm going to try and bring this one up. His legs are messed up. They're fully like backwards.
Whoa!
I don't know if you can see that there, but the joints are not right.
That's amazing.
I'm amazed that you noticed that, Jade, but thank you for bringing that one
Jesus.
up. The casual conversation between alternative Emma and Scott, so at least half the Fantastic Four are dead. Yeah, so I'll get into that in a second, but the Fantastic Four is pretty interesting in this one. We first see alternative Carol taking out the Gambit trash. We talked about that. It's very cool. And basically everything is Magneto's fault in the end. Father of the Year.
Dad of the Year.
Oh man, Magneto, what are we going to do about you? We're nearly done. Just real quick.
Yeah.
I'm going to speed through these, and then we'll be all done. I'm going to run through the tie-ins, what I kind of think about them, if I think you should read any of them. Some of them are maybe worth it. And then we'll wrap it up and let you know about next month's one.
Yeah. Cool. Good tease.
So the tie-in issues and series, there's the one I would most recommend is Spider-Man. Basically, obviously, we've shown he's kind of the star of this like House of M as a whole, the main one, but he also has really interesting side issues. They basically cover the fact that he's actually hiding, or I can't remember, he works it out. I think he realizes halfway through that he's not a mutant, even though he seems like he has mutant powers, so everyone thinks he's a mutant, but he has this secret that he's trying to hide from everyone as well. And J. Jonah Jameson is like trying to uncover it.
That's amazing. So even in this universe, he still has a secret identity.
Yeah,
J. Jonah Jameson's like, he's bad!
Because it's like Spider-Man is super famous in this, but he still has something that he's got to hide.
That's great.
Cool.
So I would highly recommend that one. The Fantastic Four one I would also recommend, because it's basically Victor Von Doom leading an evil Fantastic Four called the Fearsome Four.
Sick.
Which is very, very fun. I can't remember how it ends. I kind of want to go back and read it because I remember it having quite a cool ending as well. I think it's got something to do with Magneto. Because I think he tries to take over from Magneto as well.
It's cool. That is funny that even in this reality, even though it's in the main world, that means that Mr. Fantastic is still evil, because every other reality other than Earth 616, every other freaking Earth,
he's a bad dude.
He's like the worst guy.
Yeah, and
Mr. Fantastic just sucks.
Yeah. So basically, just touching on what Jade said as well, the Fantastic Four I think are all dead in this reality, like the main Fantastic Four. Right. So basically, the version of the Fantastic Four is the Fearsome Four, which is a cool little twist on that thing. And then I haven't actually read the Avengers one, but apparently it deals with the underground Avengers in Hell's Kitchen, which sounds quite fun.
Yeah,
that's
like
cool.
The Luke Cage, Hawkeye, Moon Knight, Cloak, all them. It wasn't on the Marvel Universe like complete House of M event.
Yeah,
thing,
right.
So
that's weird.
I haven't read that one.
Weird.
But maybe give that a go. The Hulk one also kind of good, but I'm just gonna say, concerning use of Hulk alongside Indigenous Australians, I think Will has talked about this before in relation to the Avengers game.
Is this where he comes up?
Yeah.
This is where the Outback Hulk thing is based off, I'm pretty sure. The actual tie-in, quite good.
Yeah, right.
Overall, if you ignore that bit. But that bit is very concerning because it's basically Hulk joins an Indigenous tribe, and then the way they characterize it is very... As Australians, it's very concerning.
Okay.
I mean, as anyone, but especially Australians, knowing the history behind it all.
That is interesting too, because he never comes up in this, does he?
No. He's in Australia. Basically because he's in Australia, and the reason I say it's quite cool is because it deals with a completely separate part of the world that we don't see in the other ones. So it's
cool.
Interesting in that capacity. I actually like the Iron Man. I'm saying I only recommend a few. I like a lot of them. Spider-Man and Fantastic Four are the two I would top recommend. But basically, the Iron Man one is also kind of fun. Basically,
famously
it's Tony Stark.
Ben's favorite
he loves
Marvel character.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. It's the only time I sympathize with Tony, because he's the world's most famous sapien, which is what they call humans in this. But he's like realizing he's also oppressed, and his dad is alive in this and actively like trying to undermine him. And I think it's actually an interesting examination of that character if he has some level of conflict even with his like popularity. He's got something that's like making him a minority almost, because he's always like the famous white rich guy.
Yeah.
That's part of my problem with him. So I think they
do a bit different.
In that way, it's interesting here. Also, the like Iron Man suits they have in this are giant mech suits based off like Sentinels, and it's very cool.
I was gonna say that the Sentinels are very much red and gold Iron Man looking boys in this comic.
They have like fighting arenas which Tony and Howard fight in and stuff, and it's very cool.
Am I also mistaken in that these also have Magneto heads? I swear there's like these things flying that I thought were like these Sentinels, but they have like Magneto helmets.
They have I think they have they're designed to have like.
It looks like a normal Sentinel, but then the head is the Magneto.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Good.
I
do like that. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, sick. I will also just say, sorry, just for Hulk, he is green in this, so they made a big choice for that action figure.
no, he's green in this, which actually makes the Avengers thing worse.
Yeah.
Because they made his. I don't understand that. That game came out last year, and they made that decision. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. Please.
Here's some of the bad ones. I'm just going to power through them. Mutopia, Uncanny X-Men, New X-Men, Exiles, lots of obscure X-Men in these.
Yep.
Some of them have kind of fun stories. Some of them are kind of wacky, but you're going to have to do a lot of Googling if you don't know much about X-Men. There's some crazy characters. Got Captain Britain in one of them.
Yeah.
The Wolverine one is fun, but like really inconsequential to anything because it's based in the House of M reality before that exists.
Oh, so like when he's like, 2 weeks ago we did this event.
Yeah,
right.
Basically, and this is the one where Nick Fury pops up as a generic white guy, and I'm so glad it's not. That's not that character anymore.
Yep.
There's a few like single issue ones as well. Cable and Deadpool has Cable as a baby and Mr. Sinister.
Good.
And that's pretty fun. It's not really relevant at all to the overall story, but it's a fun one as Deadpool normally is.
Yep.
Awesome.
New Thunderbolts, don't care. Something to do with Genus Vell, who I barely know as a character. Captain America gives us some context about Old Man Cap, so if you're curious about how he got to be an old man in this one, sure, but also not that important. The Black Panther issue really kind of sucks. It's he's just like a playboy, but not in a like. It's like they're trying to make him like the classic comic book rich king guy, but it doesn't work with the character at all, especially the version of the character we know now. But it does give us some cool views of like Magneto has this worldwide government of like Storm and Black Panther and Victor Von Doom, like these. And like Kree guys, Namor. He's basically got this whole government going across the whole world, and so it gives you a cool look into that. But that's about it.
Sure.
I think final one is the Pulse.
Yep.
It's a single issue. It's basically gives us some more context about Hawkeye and what happened to him while he wasn't in the main run. I would recommend giving it a read, as like it does help with that kind of stuff, working that out. It's also like done from the perspective of a news reporter, which is quite cool.
Sick.
So overall, man, I would recommend Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, and probably the Pulse. And then if you want a fun one, Cable and Deadpool. The rest you can kind of miss.
Yeah,
but you've heard my summaries. If you want to read them, go for it.
Yeah. The Iron Man one sounds pretty good too.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you
kind
would
of
say
a different
that.
I would say that. You said that, please.
I did say that.
You did.
Yeah.
No.
All right. I think we're done.
I think we are. Thank you so much for pushing this comic into our faces once again. It was a great one to read through.
Yeah, another one that one of the big events that I've wanted to read but just never did. As with all of the comics that I own.
Look to the right.
I get it. There's so many in like my...
There's a pile.
There's so many in like my Marvel Unlimited like saved and stuff as well that I'm like, I'll get to it one day.
Yeah.
No, thank you guys. It was good. It was good to do this again. I've read this event before, so it was good to go back through it, look at it from kind of a different perspective.
Nice.
And my plan for next month, I haven't actually run this by you guys either,
please.
so we'll see. But there's a Falcon and the Winter Soldier run from last year. which is just a 5-issue run.
Yeah.
It should all be up on Marvel Unlimited like a week from now, so probably around when this podcast goes up, actually. But yeah, it's just a like kind of buddy cop thing. I think they're doing it because of the show, obviously. But I haven't read it. Yeah. So that'll be fun to do one that I haven't read personally.
Yeah, that could be cool. And a shorter one, probably less dense
shorter one.
to think about as well.
I don't think I will have to do. I mean, I'll still probably find a way to write a page of notes on each issue, but I'll try not to.
No, I'm keen. Let's do that one. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, issue
Sounds
1 to
good.
4 is currently up, so issue 5 shouldn't be too far off.
And I checked last night, issue 5 should be up in a week if they follow their 3-month thing. So that's all good.
Cool. Awesome.
That's March.
All right. And if you want to... Oh, God. I can't do the Patreon thing. We'll do the Patreon thing.
If you want to join the discussion and be able to just send your notes through straight to the man in the chair, you can jump on over to patreon.com/each to their own, and just a actual Australian $2 will get you into the Discord. No longer are we bound by the American economic system. We're finally here, finally Australian dollars. So please.
It's so wonderful.
Stuff.
Yes, please do. And I'll chuck your comments in. Even if you're dingo and you just write a dumb little comment, I'll chuck it in. So please.
Even more, just boiled it down to even if you're dingo. Just in general.
Dingo. Yeah, totally. Nice. All right. Thank you all for listening. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you enjoyed reading House of M.
Yeah.
And we'll catch you next month. I've been Ben.
I've been Will.
I've been Josh.
See ya.
Bye, guys.